to the Farmerdale Podcast. Welcome to the Farmerdale Podcast. Welcome to the Farmerdale Podcast.
Well, hey, and welcome to the Farmerdale Podcast, episode number 8. I'm flying solo today. I don't have a guest because today is Super Bowl Sunday, and it's late in the afternoon, and I'm pretty sure everybody's having their party. They're eating their chicken wings, they're eating their pizza, the chips and dip. They've got it rolling, and they are ready for the big game, because I don't know if I'm supposed to say Super Bowl. You got to say the big game. But I wasn't going to do a podcast today, and I thought, well, it's Super Bowl Sunday, not going to do one. But I went to church this morning, and man, God got me really thinking. So I decided we're going to do one. So before we get into all that, I want to say thank you to everybody. We are getting 50 to 60 downloads or views between YouTube and all the platforms on social media. I mean, on all of the podcast platforms. I'm blown away. I didn't think we were going to get one person. Didn't really think we were going to get two. But now we're on a pretty good average of 50 to 60 downloads per week. And I'm so happy about that. The only way we can keep that going is if you continue to like, subscribe, share, and ring that bell to make sure you know when the next edition's coming up and the next episode's coming, because we can't grow this without you. And we really need you to share the word, right? We talk a lot about farming, we talk about family, we talk about faith, we talk about sports. Somewhere along there, it's going to hit you, and you're going to like what we got to say, hopefully. But I'm blown away. So thank you for that. Well, like I said, I wasn't planning on doing a podcast today, but we are going to do one. And I went to church this morning, and it got my mind going. God was really speaking to me. And then I needed to go see my mom. So after church, we ate dinner, had a little potluck dinner at church. If you never had a potluck dinner at church before, you try those out. Filled my belly, drove into Memphis. My mom's in memory care, so we're going to talk a little bit about that because she sparked some conversation with me today, and I'm like, ooh, I just think I need to share that. So we're going to dig into the Bible today. We're going to talk about my mom and her athletic career, which we talked about today with her, or I talked about with her today. And then we're going to talk about how I actually became a coach. And I've shared a little bit of that, but I kind of want to detail all that. This podcast is all about stories. I want to tell you a little bit about my story of how I actually became a coach and fell in love with coaching. So we'll get into that. And we'll do that in just a minute. All right, welcome back to the podcast. And I hope y'all stick with us, because I think you may want to stick all the way to the end. Stick with us all the way to the end, because I think my journey could help some people decide what their journey might be. And rely upon God to do that, because we're going to dig deep into the Word. I'm going to get a sip of some tea. That's so good. All right, so here we go. All right, so we're at church this morning, and our church is reading through the Gospels. We read through the book of Matthew. Now we're into the book of Mark. But today's sermon was on Mark 4, starting with verse 35. So I just want to read that for you, and then I'm going to circle back around to how my brain, which is a little scary when you talk about my brain, and how we got to this. So here's what it says. It's Jesus calms the storm. We're talking about storms in your life. Verse 35, on that day when evening had come, he said to them, let us go across the other side. He was preaching on the riverbank there, or the lake side. And the people were crowding him up. And he was like, man, I'm getting crowded. I've got to do something. So he ends up getting in a boat to finish preaching. But he said, let's go across to the other side. And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, talking about the disciples, just as he was. And the other boats were with him. or the other boats were with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. I can only imagine that. They're like, wait, we got to dump all this water out of the boat. What's going on? They didn't trust Jesus at that time. But he was in the stern, asleep and on the cushion. And they woke him up and said to him, Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? And he woke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was great calm. And he said to them, Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith? And they were filled with great fear and said to one another, Who then is this that even the wind and the sea obey? Now, I wasn't planning on doing this podcast today, but when I heard this verse again, I'd read it a couple weeks ago actually, and I was like, boy, the storms in my life, if I would have not gone through those storms, I would not be where I am today. And without trusting God to get me here, I don't know if I would have been able to be successful and be where I'm at. So the whole set of verses stems around the disciples not trusting God or trusting Jesus. And he was like, hey, how dare you not believe in me? So then all of a sudden he just says, hey, stop the wind, stop the rain, stop the storm. Have faith in me, and you will not perish. And he was really saying you're going to have eternal life, right? That's what he's saying. So those verses got me thinking about my life. And when I got to my mom's today, my mom's in memory care. After my dad passed away, or in that whole process, my mom's got dementia, and she needed some proper care that we could not give her. I mean, my brother and I, well, there's just no way my families or our families together could give her what she needed. It was going to be a major strain on my family and my brother's family. So we made the decision that she needed to go into memory care. And we've got her in a great place called Story Point, Germantown. And boy, the way they take care of her and her happiness is unbelievable. She was very angry and distraught for many, many reasons going in. She was depressed, but boy, they take really good care of her. I enjoy going to talk to my mom. Now, those conversations can be all wacky sometimes. If you know anybody with dementia or Alzheimer's, boy, your conversations can go kind of crazy sometimes. But I've learned you just kind of go with it. You laugh, you giggle, and you move on, and you just go along with the story sometimes. A lot of times I hear the same story or I get the same question 15 times just within an hour time of spending with mom. And that's okay. We'll keep going over those stories. But today I walked in the room and she's like, hey, I could tell she was in a great mood. She had just eaten lunch and she was in her chair in her room, had the TV going. and she said, hey, what have you been doing? So I started telling her, you know, we were out of school for the snow and all this. And then we went back to school and it's been chaotic and chaos just trying to get all the basketball games in. We're running a basketball tournament at Woodland, and we got 5-6 teams that we're trying to get places. And I've been in multiple gyms this week, so I've been on the run. I've been home till 9 o'clock every night this week. So we started talking about it, and she's like, hey, you know I played basketball. And I said, yeah, I know you played basketball. You went to Brighton High School. So she starts in all this conversation about her going to Brighton High School and playing basketball. So we talked a little bit about that. She played all the way back when they only played half court, and it was 3-on-3, and you could only play offense or defense. And I asked her which one did she like playing better. She's like, oh, I only played offense. She didn't play any defense. I'm like, that makes total sense. Because my mom has always been very tough, and she's been very honest in what she normally says, and she's going to tell you what she thinks. Maybe that's where I get it from, right? She's going to tell you exactly what she thinks. But it's normally an honest thought, typically. It may be kind of brutal, but she tells you anyway. So we're talking about her basketball career, and she loved playing basketball, and asked her who her coach was, and she said Mr. Bennett. Well, Mr. Bennett was also the principal of the school. So Mr. Bennett seemed like he was a great guy. I got no idea what his first name was. She just called him Mr. Bennett. But she obviously loved Mr. Bennett, and that got me thinking about the impact that coaches and teachers have on their students. My mom is 79 years old, and that's another story because she keeps telling everybody that she's already 80, and she's not. She doesn't turn 80 until June, but she keeps telling everybody she's 80 years old. I think she's going to be proud to be 80, and she wants a big birthday party and all this. But the impact, I mean, she remembers what Mr. Bennett did for her. And she told a lot of different stories about Mr. Bennett. But the most interesting story that she told me was that they didn't have a lot of stuff when she was growing up. Her dad and mom were sharecroppers. They lived basically in a sharecropper shack. No running water, no plumbing. That's how she was raised. And they picked cotton, and that's how they picked all kind of different stuff in the fields. Cotton was the main thing they picked, but all of her memories from a long time ago are intact, I guess. Now I hope these stories are somewhat true, but she's telling me a story where they didn't have a lot of money, but she said that she could buy a full lunch at school for 25 cents a week. I don't know where that's true. So one time she said 50 cents. I don't know. But she said 25 cents. Her mom and dad would give her 25 cents and she would go to school. Well, she also learned that she could work in the cafeteria cleaning the plates off and doing all the dirty work back in the kitchen. So they would let her clean the dishes and stuff, and they would let her eat for free. Well, once she figured that out, she started saving up her 25 cents or all of her money. And then she decided that she wanted a pair of flip-flops. I didn't even know they made flip-flops back in the 60s. Obviously they did. And it was downtown Brighton. She went to Brighton High School. So she said that she skipped school. I don't know if she really skipped school. She walked out and left school because she went to downtown Brighton. I guess there was a convenience store down there or some type of clothing store, and they had flip-flops. And it was a pair of red flip-flops. And she said they were 25 cents. So she worked all week in the cafeteria, saved up her 25 cents, didn't buy any more money. And then she walked down to the store during the school day to buy her flip-flops. And I'm like, well, why didn't you just wait until the school day was over? She's like, well, I rode the bus home, so I didn't have enough time. So I had to leave school because her dad, they lived out in the county. They didn't live in the city, so they had to ride the bus to school. And she knew that her dad was not going to drive her back up to the city to buy a pair of flip-flops. And boy, it seemed like she really wanted these flip-flops. Now, I've heard this story multiple times from her, but today it all started with Mr. Bennett in basketball, and that's why I want to talk about sports today, because it was a great conversation. But my point is this, is that my mother did not have a lot, and one of her comments was that she had a tailor, and her mother was the tailor because her mother made all of her clothes. And I find that phenomenal. I know that was the way it was back then. We just go to the store and get our own clothes now and whatever. But if they don't fit, if they're too big, they're too small, they don't fit you right, you don't look right. She said all of her clothes fit her perfectly because they were tailor-made for her body. But she said the one thing that her mama couldn't do was make flip-flops. And that's what made her really, really want to go walk downtown, leave the school, and get her flip-flops. So that's what she did. She talked to these two other girls into leaving with her. So I guess she was a leader back then. She had these two girls follow her. They go down, buy the flip-flops, they go back. Now, Mom knew that Mr. Bennett was probably going to see her, she said, because Mr. Bennett's office was overlooking the front of the school, and that's exactly where they had to walk. So when they got back, Mr. Bennett met them at the front door and said, what are y'all doing? And the two other girls told a lie. Mom raised her hand and said, I'm going to tell you the truth. I went and bought these flip-flops, and then the whole story came out of why. She says that Mr. Bennett didn't punish her. Punished the other two girls because they lied. Didn't punish my mom. And she said, the truth will set you free. That's what she said. Truth will set you free. And so she obviously had this relationship with Mr. Bennett on some level, being a teacher, a principal, a basketball coach. And she remembers all that. And I'm thinking, what kind of impact have I made in a positive way and a negative way? So the second part of this podcast today is going to be about kind of where I came from and how I became a coach. But storms of life. My mom said she had a great life and she had a great childhood, even though she had to pick cotton. And there were certain times of the year where they didn't get to go to school because they had harvest days and they would go harvest the stuff and then they'd come back. My grandparents didn't even own a home until 1968. That's what my mom thinks. With running water. 1968. That's crazy. I live in a really nice house, way more than what I need. God's blessed me beyond anything that I could ever have thought. He's blessed my family. So the conversation with Mom was awesome today, with just realizing how far on my mom's side of the family, and even on my dad's side of the family, because they were the same way, and didn't have a whole lot, had a lot of kids, had to feed a lot of people, had to make their own clothes. Mom was talking about how they had a well and they had to pull the bucket all the way up, and she said it was a deep well, so that's where she got all of her muscles from. She told her mom one time she could probably play football, she was so strong. But she's pulling up, and she had to carry the water back to the house to drink, to use the restroom, all that stuff. I'm like, man, I got it so easy. But sometimes I let the storms in my life just overtake my life, and I get so down or depressed, and I'm like, what am I doing? God is in control. God is in full control of your life. He knows what is best for you. Even when I want to direct it, He still knows what is best for me. And that's the way it was with my mom. My mom and Dad got married, had 2 kids, and all they wanted was to do better than what her parents had done. I don't really know if I had that plan because I had it so good, and I did what was best for my kids for sure. But my looking back on their life and back on my life now, I'm like, I'm worried about, do I have enough time to do a podcast? Do I have enough time to garden? Do I have enough time to start some seeds and all that kind of stuff? I got so many things that I worry about. Am I going to have a basketball team show up today to play? Am my referees going to show up? All these different little worries that, in the big game of life are really not important. I got to speak at chapel Wednesday, and it was about love. God loves you, right? It's the bottom line. God loves you. He loves me. He loves everybody. And He just wants you to come and choose Him. So the storms of life, we talked about how God's going to give you tribulations. That's very clear in the Bible. And just because you're a Christian doesn't mean your life's going to be easy. It's not. It may be even more difficult because there's going to be higher expectations for you because you have chosen Him as your Savior. That's a great thing. But it may be a little bit more difficult for some people. Putting your hope and trust in Jesus is really important. My mom raised me and my brother and took me to church and expected for me to be in church. And every time the doors were open, every time something was going on at church, we went to church. I didn't really raise my children that way all the time. It was, Sunday mornings, Wednesday nights, that kind of stuff. But I didn't make them go to every single thing, right? My mom made me go to every single thing. My dad traveled all the time. She was very tough woman. But as I'm talking to her today, I can see my path started with her. Her path started with her parents. Her parents started with their parents. And they had difficult lives. But they were able to succeed. They were able to overcome the storms of life, the difficulties of life. Even if that was bringing water out of a well and not just turning on your faucet. Life's not easy. The storms of life. But those storms of life will direct you. The disciples didn't really understand what Jesus was saying. And Jesus taught in parables most of the time so that they could understand, right? They wanted to relate to life. I was talking to a friend this past week, and she said that she really likes preachers who can relate life to her. True stories, real stories, that is relatable to the Bible. Absolutely. When I talked to Mom today, everything she talked about, and she talked about a lot of different other things too, everything was relatable to me. I was like, wow, I have missed a lot. I didn't stop and smell the roses most days because I got so caught up in the storm of life. The disciples were caught up in the storm, but Jesus, you know what Jesus was doing? He was taking a nap. He was chill. You know why? Because he was in control. He knew what was going to happen. That's hard for us because we don't know what's going to happen. Jesus knew what was going to happen. I hope that we can put our trust in God and truly trust Him to know that when those storms come about, He's trying to teach me something. What can I learn from that? Can I slow down long enough to say, hey, what am I supposed to know here, God? Help me out. I will listen. And I am teachable. Big part. We do that in coaching all the time. Is that player coachable? Are they teachable? So, okay. Well, that's. I wouldn't have been doing this podcast if I wouldn't have gone to church today because God spoke to me this morning. And I'm going to talk a little bit about all my storms in the second half of this podcast. So, hey, we're going to take a break and hear from our sponsor today. Today's sponsor is Groome & Company with Dewey, Dillard. He's a realtor here in Arlington, Tennessee, and you need to call him if you're going to buy or sell a house. He works for Groome & Company. They're an Arlington-based real estate company that was established in 2004 and has grown from Jenna and Billy Groome to 45 agents. And believe it or not, wow, they are the top 2% of companies in the entire Memphis area, including West Tennessee, North Mississippi. Community involvement runs deep in this local company, full of the best people you will find. Stop by our office by the railroad tracks in Arlington, right in downtown Arlington, right by the town depot. If you know what right there in the smack dab middle of the town, right by the railroad tracks. If you want to sell your house today, you need to call Dewey Dillard today at 901-218-1958. Dewey will do you up right. He'll help you buy a house. He'll help you sell a house. Whatever you're trying to do. If you're trying to move across the town, if you're moving in from across the state, Dewey will find you the best possible house and get you the best value for your house. Call him today at 901-218-1958. Dewey Dillard. He'll do you right. Well, welcome back to the Farmer Dale Podcast, episode number 8. That's what we got right here. I hope you enjoyed listening about my mom, and she's still got a lot of stories, and maybe we'll have her on a podcast someday. That would be really fantastic. To hear some more stories from my mom. So anyway, pray for her. She's doing great, and we've got her in a great situation, and God's taking care of her. So starting all the way back to the first part of the podcast, all of that got me thinking about my path of my career. Because we're talking about basketball, and Mom loved basketball, and my dad played 0 sports. 0. He dropped out of school in the 9th grade, started working at Big Star grocery store up in Covington, not there anymore, but that's where my mom and dad met, was at the Big Star in Covington. She told a joke about that Brooke, my daughter, laughs at her because she tells the story that she picked up my dad at the grocery store. I don't know if she knew what picked up meant at that time. So Mom was talking about that she started dating him and met him at the grocery store because Daddy lived in Covington, Mom lived in Brighton. So somehow she went to the grocery store. But anyway, so that's a long story. Y'all don't want to hear about that. But going back to how I became a coach. And I started really thinking, I did a lot of driving this morning, going to see my mom and coming back. So I'm thinking about, Lord, how did I get to where I am? And why in the world did I want to become a coach? Because number one, I did not like school. I was not a good student. I could have been a good student, but I chose not to be a good student because I didn't want to do work. I didn't want to read. I didn't want to do homework. I hated math. When they started putting numbers and letters together, whew, that was rough for me. But why in the world would somebody like that want to become a teacher and a coach? Well, here's how it all began. I'd always loved sports. Back when I was younger, I don't know if there was any rec sports because I didn't play any rec sports. I didn't know if there was rec basketball, recreation soccer, anything like that. I don't know. My parents did not try to get me involved in any of that. But going to Tipton Rosemark Academy and having Bobby Fowler as a teacher, as a principal, and also as a coach, he was a great motivator, and he would try to get anybody and everybody to play everything. And let me tell you, that's kind of what I do now at Woodland. I try to get everybody and anybody to do everything. Try it. See if you're good at it. And that's what Bobby Fowler did, Coach Fowler. Tremendous man and tremendous coach. It's a wonderful coach. He was tough. He was mean as a snake. And he made sure that you were mean as a snake too. And I learned a lot from that man. So my athletic career started in middle school, 7th grade, really. I had played baseball in the 6th grade at Brighton in the Dixie Youth League, and I thought I was a pretty good baseball player. I played 1 year. I made the All-Star team that first year, and I thought I was all that in baseball. My grandfather loved baseball. I don't think he ever missed me playing a game of baseball. That was my mom's dad. We called him Old Paul because he was the Old Paul guy. So baseball was the beginning of it. I just was playing because we'd play out in the yard and that kind of stuff with my brother. But that was the first time I was part of a team. I think I was on the Indians team. I remember I had a red hat. It was like the old trucker hats, which it was like one of these right here, actually. Farmerdale hat. You can get you some merch, by the way. Anyway. But I remember having a big Indian on the front of it, Native American, whatever you want to say. And I got chosen for the All-Star team. Boy, I thought I was going to get to play. And I was so disappointed. And I think it may be the reason I didn't play any more baseball. Because I got on that team and I set the bench for all of the All-Star games. I'm not too sure that I got in any of the games. I played shortstop and I pitched. Those were my two positions. Well, also on that All-Star team, the coach's son was the shortstop. And then we had another pitcher that was pretty sure was better than me. So I don't think I got to play. And I remember being so upset that I was sitting the bench. It was the first time I'd played sports to begin with, and here I find myself on the bench. What am I going to do? I think I became so discouraged that I said I'm never playing baseball ever again. But I was going into the 7th grade the next year, and the school had baseball, football, basketball. So I didn't really worry too much about baseball. Plus, it was a little slow for me because my activity in life was I got to go. And standing around sometimes was probably hard for me. I probably had ADHD and I didn't even know it. And that's probably why I do so many things now because I can't stop. Probably why I'm doing a podcast because I got a little time on my hands, so I might as well fill that time, right? But when I got to Tipton Rosemark in middle school, Coach Fowler was like, "Hey, you want to play football?" I was like, "I don't know. Let's try it." So I'm like, "Yeah, let's try it." I remember my very first day at football, we had to ride a bus and we had to go from Brighton because that's where the elementary school was, and we had to travel to TRA, where the high school was, over in Rosemark, and we had practice over there. So we get off, we get all the pads, we get all dressed up and everything, and I believe the drill is called Oklahoma. And basically, I was a 7th grader, to remind you, and Jeff Glenn was an 8th grader, And then there were two ninth graders, Bobby Ward and Greg Leggett. Bobby Ward, Greg Leggett. So if y'all listening, this is how the story goes, and this is how I remember it anyway. The Oklahoma drill basically was you got in a stance, in a linebacker stance basically, and you had a runner with the ball, had a running back, and then you had two blockers in front of that. So I had Jeff Glenn was the running back, and he was massive. His thighs was bigger than my whole entire body. He was huge. And then I had probably 6'2" Bobby Ward and 6'2" Greg Leggett, and they were already ninth graders, and they had already played 2 years of tackle football, and I had never been tackled before in my entire life. We get in that Oklahoma drill, and I've got to get rid of the first two blockers, right? So Greg Leggett hits me and knocks me out, knocks me on the ground. I remember Coach Fowler coming over, bending over, looking at me. I'm laying on my back, and Coach Fowler looks at me and he says, "Boy, you want some more?" And I was like, "I guess, I don't know." So he's like, "Yes, you do." And I got up and I was like, "Okay, what am I going to do?" He said, "Hit him lower." I said, "Okay." So I hit Greg Leggett lower, but then here comes Bobby Ward. Bam, he runs me over. Jeff Glenn has not done anything yet, by the way. So I'm on my back again, and Coach Fowler's like, "Get up, you're tough, get up, get up." So I get up, and I'm pretty sure there's snot coming out of my nose. There's spit coming out. I don't know. It was probably pretty nasty. But Bobby Fowler saw something in me because he was not going to let me quit. He was not going to let me quit that day. That's the day I became really tough, was in this first drill. Well, I got lower. I hit Greg Leggett at the knee the second time. I hit Bobby Ward at the knee the second time, got rid of them, and then here comes Jeff Glenn. He put that thigh on my face mask and ran me over. It's like, man, I mean, I can't breathe. It was hot. It was, we're talking August, and it's 110 degrees, and it's hot, and and the grass is dry. Hadn't rained probably in forever, so it was bad. So I get back up. Bobby Fowler's on me again, so I get back up. The fourth time actually, I barely tackled Jeff Glenn. I think I got his shoestring and tripped him up and got him on the ground. That's how my athletic career started. And then I was all bought in then. I was like, come on, let's bring it. I loved playing football. But what I really loved was basketball. I had been playing basketball at home, shooting by myself for many, many years. My dad had made me, my dad worked with metal, so he had made me a metal backboard, a metal post, and he put it down at the back corner of our property. And I had shot so much that I had a dirt court and have all this concrete and pavement, all this kind of stuff. I had a dirt court. I had shot so much that we had pretty much dug a hole in the ground where we had played so much. My brother and I played all the time. I loved basketball. I loved watching basketball on TV. And then after football season, I got a chance to play basketball. Let's go back to football. I remember, I think I was the only seventh grader that started on that football team that year. And I think the only reason I did was because I took a beating from Jeff Glenn, Bobby Ward, and Greg Leggett. And I just kept on ticking. I was in pain. I remember I was struggling. But it got easier and easier. I earned the right to play, right? So that's how my athletic career began. And then I got to play basketball. And, man, I was on this great basketball team. And I got to play with Greg Leggett and all them. I mean, imagine that. I was a young seventh grader and was getting to play, and we had some really good eighth graders that year. And then, so I just took off from that point. After my seventh grade year, though, I remember I figured out that I had to get bigger and stronger, and I didn't know how to do that. I begged my parents for a weightlifting set, and I think it was the Christmas of my seventh grade year. Mom and Dad didn't have enough money, probably. They were already struggling to send me to a private school, but they bought me this weightlifting thing. I'm going to cry, probably. It was one of the greatest things I ever got. Yep. I don't think that, sorry, I'll get it under control in a second. They bought into my athletic career just by buying that weightlifting set. Now, we had a carport. We didn't have a garage. So I had to put the weights out in the carport, which is not a real good situation because trying to lift weights in the wintertime in a carport when it's 20 degrees outside, not real good. But I remember that was a great time in my life. So then the summer, moved in my 8th grade year, had a great 8th grade year, and I was trying to figure out, I'm starting to cry here, guys. I remember between my 8th grade and 9th grade year, I was like, hey, I got to be bigger and stronger. What am I going to do with that? So we lived on this road called Whaley Lane, and Whaley Lane was 3 miles long from my house to the other end, all the way down to Mount Carmel Road. I would run that. I was running 3, 4, 5, 6 miles a day, and I would run that as fast as I could, and I would run it back. And when I came back, I was lifting. Now, at that time, I didn't know anything about plyometrics. Nothing about plyometrics. Now, plyometrics, I mean, if you're not doing plyometrics now, you are really not trying to improve yourself. That is a huge part of becoming a better athlete, a full body workout. But my goal was to dunk a basketball. That was my goal. How am I going to achieve that? I had these white boy calves and they were straight. There was no definition to them, and I still don't have very much definition to my calves. But boy, between my 8th grade and my 9th grade year, I ran. I lifted. There was no going to school, lifting with the football coaches and all that stuff that we do now, and having trainers and ice baths and all that stuff. There was none of that stuff. You were on your own to be bigger and stronger. Jeff Glenn was doing the same thing. I remember at his house. Blake Butler was doing the same thing at his house. We were getting bigger, stronger, but we were doing it on our own. And this is what I did. I said, I got a jump rope, and I was jump rope every single day. The next thing I did was in our carport, going up to our back door, going into the kitchen from the carport, we had 5 sets of steps. They were probably about this high, bricks. And you could jump off the side of them, up. I started on the bottom one. And I don't know what my goal was at that time. I don't know what it was, jumping back and forth. But I did that over and over and over again all summer long. So we were out of school probably for 10 weeks back then. So for 10 weeks, I just started jumping. And at some point that summer, I was out playing basketball with my brother, and I was like, I'm going to try this. I was already starting to touch the rim a little bit, but it was very, very, it wasn't easy. So I was jumping. So then I wish we'd have had cameras back then, because I have no proof of this. The only proof I have is my brother telling everybody that I dunked a basketball. And I actually had him video this. I've got a video of him telling everybody that I dunked a basketball. One time I dunked it. Bam. That was the only time that I ever dunked. I kept jumping, I kept running, and I could never really achieve that ever again. It was a miracle. That's what it was. It was a miracle. God gave me the opportunity to do it one time, and He's never given me that opportunity again. I can't even touch the backboard now. 55 years old, can't touch the backboard. I probably could if I worked pretty hard at it, but can't do it. Anyway, so my athletic career kind of started in middle school, and the love of football and basketball, but my love was basketball. I love playing football. I loved hitting people, but I wanted to be a basketball player. My goal was to play college basketball, and I thought I was going to be a professional, just like all kids are today. They're like, I want to be a professional athlete on some level. I thought I was going to be a basketball player. My dad was 6'2", something like that. All of his brothers and sisters were over 6 foot tall, or at least 6 foot tall. So I thought, man, I'm going to be tall. Well, I didn't never grow ever again, and I ended up being 5'8", and with limited athletic ability. Although I worked as hard as I could, I would outwork you. That was my goal, was to outwork you. But here's where my coaching career started. It started back in the 7th grade, because I started watching basketball games in my room on a black and white TV, and I would take a clipboard and I would draw out a basketball court on paper. And I didn't have any photo paper. I couldn't make copies, right? So every page was me drawing out a basketball court. I would sit there and watch basketball games, and I would shot chart all of the games. I remember the Memphis State games used to come on tape delay on Channel 10. I would stay up late, and I would chart those games between Keith Lee and Doom Haynes and Baskerville Holmes. I had charted probably every one of their shots in every game that they played my 7th, 8th grade year. I just had stacks of paper of all these charts. I was looking to see where were they taking shots from? What kind of offense? I didn't really know it at the time, but I was learning offense, and I was becoming a coach through all of that. That's how I became a coach. I'm not real big on stats as a coach right now. How many rebounds did we get? How many turnovers did we make? I know that if we're playing bad, we're playing bad. We're playing good, we're playing good. I know that. But at that time, I was charting all those shots. I would watch Alabama SEC basketball games, and I was charting other schools all over the place. I was learning. And then when I went to college, I graduated high school, went to college, and I thought I was going to be a history teacher. And then I was like, this is crazy. Don't want to be a history teacher. And I had another friend that was a PE teacher or going to be a PE major. And I want you to be a PE major. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. We'll play games all day. So, because all we did in PE at TRA was play kickball all the time. But I was like, yeah, let me be a PE teacher. So I got into the PE program. And then I think it was my sophomore year, Coach Layton, who was my football coach my senior year, Bobby Fowler had retired my junior year. Coach Layton came in, and Coach Layton was total opposite of Coach Fowler. Coach Fowler would spit on you. I mean, he would make telephone calls to your face mask. It was crazy. He loved you to death. And Bobby Fowler, I got a lot of stories to tell you about Bobby Fowler, and all the guys that played for him's got a lot of stories. But Coach Layton was different. He was more laid back. He was quieter. He didn't yell and scream at you. He had a whole different way of doing it. I also had, I think from my 7th grade year to my senior year in high school, I had a different coach all 7 years or 6 years. I got to see a lot of coaching styles, from screaming, yelling, to being calm, to being a guy that just push you to, just kind of let it flow. So I got to see a lot of different styles. But my sophomore year, I think it was going to be my sophomore year. Coach Layton called me and he said, "Hey, I need somebody to go coach our JV girls basketball team at summer camp at Ole Miss. Are you interested?" And I was like, "Yeah." I still didn't know what I was going to coach at that time. I just knew I was going to get into teaching PE. So I said, "Yeah." So I went to Ole Miss with him, and man, I was hooked. I was like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm going to get a teaching job, teaching PE, and I'm going to coach basketball. Well, that's what happened. I graduated college, and then I had two major interviews. One was at the Covington school system in Covington, Tennessee, and one was with Shelby County Schools in Memphis. There was about a $10,000 pay difference at that time. I went and interviewed for Covington that morning, and I walked out of there, and I thought, hey, I'm probably going to get this job at Crestview Middle, teaching PE and coaching. It's going to be awesome. I'm kind of from Covington, grew up in Covington, know a lot of people. But then that afternoon, I got home, and I was already married to Jenny, and I were already married. Jenny was already teaching. I didn't really know what I was doing, what I was going to end up doing, or where I was going to go. But boy, we're talking, this is the week before schools are supposed to start, and I still didn't have a job. So I get a call from Shelby County Schools. Miss Williams calls me and says, "Hey, I need you tomorrow morning to be at Kirby Middle School at 9 o'clock to interview for a PE job." I was like, "Yes, ma'am," because there was a $10,000 difference. Now, Kirby Middle School probably had a bad reputation back then, right? But they needed a PE teacher. I was available. I walk in, and Mr. Prokosky, Tom Prokosky, is the principal, and he's brand new also. And we interview. He hires me on the spot, and he says, "You start tomorrow." I was like, "Whoa, wow, okay." So he hired me to be a PE teacher, and he hired me to be the boys' basketball coach. Man, I was green. I didn't know what in the world I was doing. So I went in very first day teaching, and I got 90 kids in a class. It's like, oh wow, this is crazy. I learned on the run. I really did. I'd student taught at Briarcrest and student taught at White Station, but this was Kirby Middle School. This was totally different from what those situations were, especially Briarcrest. This is a totally different situation. And so I learned on the go. Every single day was a brand new day. Didn't know what I was doing. But then basketball season starts, and it's still that way now, I think. They started in the middle of October. So we started tryouts 1st of October, and we were practicing, and we were starting games right in the middle of October. I think I had 250 boys. That's right. I said 250 boys try out for basketball. Every boy in that school thought they were basketball players. I didn't know. But let me tell you what I got. God bless me, right? He took a guy who really didn't know how to coach basketball, thought he knew how to coach basketball, thought he knew how to teach all the fundamentals, and I could. Knew everything about offense, defense, and I knew a lot. I'd prepped myself for this for a long, long time, with not even knowing that I was prepping for it, but I was prepping for it. And I had to figure out tryouts. The very first day of tryouts was total chaos. The next day, I decided I was going to take paper and I was going to write numbers, because I didn't even know all the kids' names still at that time. So I took numbers, and everybody had a number. And at the end of the day, I'd come back and say, I want it number 1, number 23, number 50. Y'all come back tomorrow, right? So that's what I did. And it took me 5 days to do tryouts. I thought it was going to take me 2 days, and we're going to be done and go. It took me 5 days for tryouts. What I ended up with was a championship team, because I had at least 2 boys that could dunk, had kids that could shoot from half court. That they were unreal. My very first year, I had a set of brothers named Roy and Ronnie Green. Their dad was a coach at Oak Haven High School, and he was tremendous to me. He was super nice to me, because I didn't know what I was doing, and he had a way to tell me that. It was very unique on how he would do that. I figured out that pressing was a big thing. We've been pressing. I still press today. I press. Can't press enough. So we win the Shelby County Championship my very first year. So, man, I think I am hot stuff. Let me tell you, I'm bad. I'm a coach of the year. So then the second year, got basically the same team back. We added a few more kids to the team. Still very, very good. I remember Roy Green. Ronnie was more of a football player, but he was a great basketball player. But Rory was a basketball player. He would come across half court, and he would shoot the basketball. And there were moments when I would go, whoa, wait a minute. What are you doing? And then he would hit it. And I'm like, what am I doing? I can't tell this kid he can't shoot the basketball when he's going to make 9 out of 10 from half court. It's phenomenal. He went on to play some college basketball and stuff. If it wouldn't have been for the Green boys and all those boys on that team on those first couple of years, I don't know if I would have made it. But they started my career off on an unbelievable route. In 4 years, we won 3 county championships. The third year, we got to the championship and got beat. If I remember all this correct, it's been a long time ago. That was in 1995 when I started this process. But it all started at Kirby Middle School. And I love my 4 years at Kirby. But then we got annexed into the city, and then everybody was leaving. Everybody's like, we got to stay in the county. So Tom Prokosky was a phenomenal principal and a phenomenal friend to me. He said, hey, you need to go interview for the girls' basketball job at Bolton. I'm like, wow, that's right there next to Rosemark where we grew up. I get to go back to Bolton, get to move. We were living in off of Shelby Drive and Hickory Hill. we're going to sell our house and get to move back to Bolton. So I went to the interview, and I really believe before I walked into that interview, I think I had it, because Tom had called Dr. Carruthers at Bolton and said, hey, I got this young guy coming in. He's been very successful at Kirby Middle. He's never coached varsity before, but they need a girls coach for the varsity team. I was like, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm going to give this a shot, because I wanted to be the best coach in the world. That's what I wanted to be. I'd study. I couldn't get enough of what basketball was teaching me, right? So I go into the interview with Dr. Carruthers, and I walk out with a job. Same exact thing happened with Tom Prokosky at Kirby. I walked in, I walked out, I had a job. The next week, I get brought back to Bolton, and they bring me in front of the team. All the girls, there were some really good seniors that were going to be seniors the next year, had played 3 years with Coach Moore, Dennis Moore, and he had prepped them great. He had them ready to go. So I walked into a really, really good situation again. And I'm like, this is awesome. So the first year, I don't even know what we did. I think we may have gotten to the district championships. I don't really know. I don't remember. We had Laura Filsinger as our point guard. We had some really good players on that team, and had a really good set of juniors. But below that, didn't have a whole lot behind that, really, I don't think. So we finished out that first year and was pretty successful. The next year, though, I had a set of freshmen coming in, and they were coming in from Shadowlawn Middle, and they were coming in from Appling. And boy, they were going to be good. I had scouted them. I had gone to their games. I'd done everything that I should have done as a coach, talked to parents. Them coming in, I knew what I had. So, boy, we started summer workouts. Right, school ended, we started summer workouts. And right from the very beginning, we had Natasha Manis was already on the team already. And I remember her telling me, we had Taryn Towns was our point guard. She was a freshman coming in. And I remember Natasha Manis telling me, she goes, boy, she's really good. We were just doing a little scrimmage. And I'm like, yeah, she's really good. She's special. She's really special. So I'd never really seen a girl play like that, because I had also coached the girls at Kirby Middle and didn't have anybody like that. Nobody. So we had a big dilemma that year of, I got a set of seniors coming in, and I remember I rocked the boat. The first couple of games I went with the seniors, and we were starting, and we didn't play real well, and it wasn't going real well. So I made the hard decision to start some of those freshmen. And from that point on, we were good. I think we ended up winning the district that year. We won the region. Didn't make it to state that year. But then we went to summer camp the following year. My third year, I'm like, we got this. This is going to be awesome. We're rocking. Everybody's working hard in the weight room. We had taken an old locker room because they didn't have a girls' weight room. So I had taken an old locker room, gutted that thing out, and added brand new weights. I had a great booster club, had some great parents donating money, and we were raising money. And those girls were getting in there, working their tails off. We're running on the track. We're lifting weights. We're running stairs. We're doing plyometrics. We're doing everything we should do. And my third year, I just knew in my heart that if we do it all right, we got something special here. And we did. We ended up going to state that year. We won district, won the region, won sub-state versus Fairleigh that year. A lot of stories that I could tell, but we're going to run over on this podcast. But then we ended up going to state. We got beat the first game of state, never went back to state. And I think that is the last team to ever make it to state at Bolton High School. I don't think there's ever been another team since that time. And that was 2001 or 2002. I think it was 2002 probably when that happened. But boy, that kind of started off. Well, that group graduated high school, and I had put so much time and effort into it that there was one day that I had just a meltdown with my wife. And I guess you would call it an anxiety attack, because I'd built something. We had worked so hard to build it. And, it's hard to keep something going and sustainable and winning. I put a lot of pressure on myself to continue on. And I think the pressure got to me. And I told my wife, I said, I can't do this anymore. So I'm going to resign from coaching the girls basketball team. that's what I did. So I walked into Dr. Carruthers' office and I said, Doc, I can't do this anymore. And I want to continue teaching. Well, then I became the assistant girls soccer coach. Just hang on for another year. So that's what I did. I taught. And then I ended up at Millington Middle. I did 4 years at Millington Middle. I coached the varsity girls basketball team at TRA for 2 years. I had a great time doing that. And then we moved to Daphne, Alabama. I coached down there. And when I came back, I went to Woodland Presbyterian School, where I am now, and I coached the boys basketball team for 9 years. And then I'm done doing that. I gave it all over to Al Graham, and Al Graham ran it for 2 or 3 years, and then he's over at Christian Brothers now as one of their assistants. But now I'm back coaching girls again, and I tell you what, I've got a special group, and I'll probably cry here again, but they're special. And coaching girls is something that a lot of people can't do. You got to have a special way to talk about it. Let me tell you what I've learned is that I made a lot of mistakes at the very beginning of my coaching career. I yelled and screamed. I was on referees all the time. I had a bad reputation with referees. It was bad. And when I got to Woodland, and when they figured out I'd do all those referees, and they'd come into Woodland and they would dip their head down and they'd go, "Oh no, it's Creasy." I was like, I'm not who I used to be. So I've learned, and I tell you what, I enjoy coaching. Back then, I was trying to win. And then I realized that that's what it wasn't about. It was about teaching these kids how to play basketball. And I've become a better coach, I think. Still understand the game. I'm still learning. There's always new things to learn. But enjoying the game more. Enjoying the game a whole lot more. God has brought me through a lot of storms. A lot more than what I can tell right now, because this podcast is going to go way too long. But I can tell you that without God, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I regret a lot of the way I coached earlier in my career. I regret that. I would probably say some of my girls at Bolton back then would go, "Man, Coach Creasy was crazy." Aaron Meyer and April Nathaniel and Taryn Towns and India Williams, they will all tell you that I was crazy. Part of that was because I wanted to be the best coach I could possibly be, and I wanted them to be the best athlete they possibly could be. And a lot of them went to go on to play college. Played at Rhodes and Christian Brothers and Cumberland, Sanford down in Birmingham. A lot of them played a lot of different places, but a big part of that was because God had that plan for them. He just kind of placed me in there to facilitate that. Going back to what my mom said about Mr. Bennett, I hope that I can impact kids in some way, and I hope I can do that in a positive manner. And I don't necessarily know if I did a lot of that in a positive way back when I first started, because to be honest, I was a selfish coach. I was in it for me more than anybody else, trying to succeed, trying to make it bigger and better. But I tell you what, I enjoy coaching more now than what I ever have, because I coach for the enjoyment of it and not wins and losses. And we're still successful. That's what's cool about it, is that we're still successful. So whatever you end up doing in life, you better, or I suggest that you try to put God in that plan, because He already knows what the plan is. Allow Him to direct that, and don't fight Him, because it won't work out good for you. So, well, I hope that y'all have enjoyed today. This has been an honest conversation with you today. And that's what I found out about my mom. She's probably a little too honest. I'm a little too honest sometimes too. So anyway, it's been a little long. Hope you stuck with it. But next week, my favorite son's going to be the special guest, Cole Creasy. That's right. We're going to talk a lot about duck hunting. We're going to talk a lot about photography, videos, farming. He's got chickens and he's raising vegetables. We're going to talk a lot about the vegetables next week. And the big thing next weekend, it's time to plant our lettuce, our broccolis, our spinach, and our peppers and our tomatoes. So we're going to be getting busy in this grow room right here. It's also the Farmer Dale podcast, but this grow room is about to be full. Heat mats are about to be heated up, and we're going to get everything going in the grow room. So stay tuned, because we're going to put some TikToks out there about how we do this and do that. How do we get seed started? We're going to be getting all that going next week. But hey, I don't know who you got for the Super Bowl, and it's starting right now. It's starting right now. So I got to go. I got to go see who's going to win, Seattle or the Patriots. I hope you get what you want out of it. I don't really care. I just want to see the commercials. Maybe have a good halftime show. Maybe. I don't know, but we'll see. So, hey, until next time, you may want to listen to this next little lesson, though. Listen to what I got to say about the merch store. Hey, this last segment is brought to you by the Farmer Dale merch store. The merch store. Click on the link. Get you a hoodie, get you a hat, get you a t-shirt. Multiple colors. Get you something to wear this summer or finish out this wintertime. It's probably going to snow again. You don't know. And I know it's going to be cold again. So get you something from the merch store. But hey, if you want to be a sponsor of the Farmer Dale podcast, email me at farmerdalepodcast@gmail.com and we'll make you a sponsor. Be like Dewey, Dillard. Support the show. farmerdalepodcast@gmail.com, and we will talk it out and see how you can become the next sponsor of the Farmer Dale podcast. Get that merch. Don't forget it. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and ring that bell to keep this podcast going. Until next time, next Sunday, Farmer Dale's favorite son, Cole Creasy, he'll be our guest hopefully. So check us back for next week. Cole Creasy, special guest. Until that time, Farmer Dale, out.